if you went with that mindset, then you would have probably failed within the first few days of trying to get clients. How have you had to change your mindset?
If you come here with the mindset that there's only one way of doing things, you're not going to be very successful. Litigation in the United States bears no semblance whatsoever to litigation in China.
I went to business events and quickly had this like baptism of fire and realized that I have to be aware, be open-minded, treat people in a different way.
I think it really does present an opportunity to enrich your career in ways that you may not even realize. I still like to think that humans are capable of adjusting to their surroundings. Chinese companies and Chinese clients, the relationship really has to have a personal nature to it.
The one-size-fits-all mindset doesn't work in international law. Step into another country thinking your way is the only way, and you will fail fast. Success in law isn't just about knowing the rules. It's about knowing how to connect. I've seen lawyers walk into international markets assuming they can operate like they do at home, and they hit a wall. Because legal strategy, business, and connections are shaped by culture. Cultural intelligence isn't just a nice to have skill. It can be the difference between landing clients and losing them. Today, I'm sitting down with George Summerfield, partner at K&L Gates Beijing office. He has worked in patent litigation for over 30 years and was listed in the best lawyers in America for patent litigation in 2024. After a long career in the US, George decided to make a career change and move to China. In this conversation, we explore the challenges and insights of cross-cultural experiences, practicing law in a completely different culture, adapting to new norms, and building meaningful connections. So, George, you have been in Beijing around a month now. You've moved from a US law firm to the Beijing office. Can you talk about why you made that move?
Listening to you talk about what it's like to be a digital nomad and, introducing me to other lawyers that have kind of taken this career change going, maybe doing things that are out of the box, off the beaten path, as it were, kind of inspired me when the firm came to me and proposed that I think about taking a position here to increase our intellectual property presence in Beijing. It occurred to me this is exactly the kind of thing I need at this point in my career to keep it interesting. So the idea here, we have a number of Chinese clients that have intellectual property matters in the United States. We're obviously looking to expand that area of the practice as well. They thought that a Western lawyer based in one of our offices here would be a good way to do that. I did speak at least a smattering of Chinese, so I was one of the people they came and asked to consider this potential switch.
It's quite a big switch, though, like your firm coming to you and being like, oh, do you want to go to our Beijing office? And you being like, yes, that is quite a big decision to make. Completely different culture, completely different language, completely different food, like everything. What actually made you think, you know what, now's the time to make this jump?
Well, I mean, I guess several things. First of all, it's not the first time I've lived overseas. It is the first time I've done this as part of a career. But I did a Fulbright in Romania back in 83, 84, when it truly was a very different cultural experience. I mean, lots of things were going on in Eastern Europe at the time. And so coming from the United States to the Eastern Bloc was a big cultural change for me. It took a lot of getting used to, but at the end of the day, it was one of the best experiences I'd ever had. Coming here, I mean, obviously it's a little different because I'm in the middle of a rather mature career at this point. And so it did require, I guess, a little more thought. I really, frankly, needed a change of some sort. And I wasn't going to switch practice areas because at this point, that really isn't a practical thing to do. So switching geographies seemed to be a good way to accomplish this. And again, listening to people like you talk about ways that lawyers can keep their careers fresh, that was a pretty big motivating factor.
Oh, that's so great to hear. I think, yeah, a lot of people do get stuck in their careers and just think, I'm doing the same thing day in, day out. It's getting a bit tiring. How can I switch things up in a different way? And many people think, oh, I'm going to have to leave the law completely, but it's not always the case. If you love your career and you do well in your career, then I think a brilliant option, like you've done, is to try and see if you can change to another office. I spoke to a partner who moved from London to Japan and had a completely different life change, and it was just sounded absolutely amazing. And it sounds like you've done the same kind of thing. But I guess with that comes its own new challenges and obstacles. Have you faced any cultural challenges, shall we say?
I mean, the language, obviously. I mean, my goal here is to become fluent in a year, but the kind of the uphill climb in the meantime is somewhat challenging. I mean, I've attended a few professional events that were entirely in Mandarin, and I could follow, roughly 15 to 20%. So that's a little bit frustrating, but this is kind of the growing pains you have if you're going to do something like this and not just be effectively an American long-term tourist somewhere. I mean, I really am intent on learning the language to the point where I can function in it. So that's been an issue. But I mean, culturally, look, I mean, you know this. So basically, you just have to be aware of people's behaviors and take cultural cues from the people that are around you and not assume that everybody is going to behave and think the way you do. And as long as you have that kind of awareness, the cultural differences can be, I guess, enriching rather than a challenge.
I do agree, although when I was in Hong Kong, so I went there, I didn't think about culture or differences or anything like this. So I went there with expectations and then was met with challenges because it just didn't occur to me that people would be acting completely differently to me. And I know that sounds crazy, but I was also like 20 years old. And I went there and I realized you have to be so open-minded. I worked for a firm there, I went to business events and quickly had this like baptism of fire and realized that I have to, like you say, be aware, be open minded, treat people in a different way, adapt to their culture. And this is how you're able to kind of, I would say, thrive in different cultural environments when you're able to adapt yourself and not be like, no, I'm English or I'm American and this is how I do things and this is how I greet people. If you change your behavior, then the other person really appreciates that, especially if you're in their country. Have you kind of found that?
I have, and actually, it was even before I came here that I learned that lesson. I mean, I've done patent litigation around the United States. The biggest mistake that I've seen big city lawyers make when they may come into a courtroom in one of the smaller jurisdictions is they come in and say, look, Your Honor, I'm from New York, and this is the way we do things there. Bad idea. I'm living in a country with a 5,000-year-old culture. To come here and act as if I know everything and I've seen everything and there's only one right way of doing things, I think would be an enormous mistake. I took those life lessons that I learned kind of early on in my career to heart. And especially again, when you're obviously confronted every day with the fact that you're living in a different culture, it's easy to remember, I guess. It may be hard to put into practice, but I guess that the indicia that you need to be culturally sensitive are pretty much around you all the time when you make a move like this.
It's kind of funny because I also find that I've picked up a lot of cultural habits from Chinese people and Hong Kong people that I now do in in Europe,
Mm.
and it doesn't go down very well. I'll tell you that.
I do understand how if you just start becoming this more international person, if you will, that there are certain things you have to sort of crop back depending on where you are in the world. I guess that's right, sort of a curse and a blessing at the same time. You've seen and done a lot at the same time. You still kind of have to silo your experiences and your behaviors as a function of where you happen to be.
Yeah, definitely. Although sometimes I have to stand my ground with some of my own cultural norms, I'll say. Like for example, when I drink tea. So I'm in Spain and people have a problem with me drinking tea whilst I'm eating my lunch. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I can't change this. Like, this is just something that I want to do. And I know it's going to annoy you, but you're just going to have to deal with this one.
You don't want to be culturally offensive, yet at the same time, I mean, I guess the one I would mention is, sitting at a bar. As you know, in Britain, there aren't really things like bar stools. People sit at tables. I just am not used to doing that. So no matter where I am, I will be standing or sitting at a bar. I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but that's just not something I'm going to stop doing. It's like you are to a large extent a product of your environment, right? I still like to think that humans are capable of adjusting to their surroundings. It's more a function of desire than ability. I will say the thing that's been frustrating for me over the years when I travel overseas is when I see tourists trying to Americanize their foreign experiences. And this goes well beyond, I think, maybe little idiosyncrasies that we may have developed. For anyone that's listening, I would encourage you if you're going someplace, especially for a longer period of time, you know, don't look for home where you are. I mean, I understand that there's something comfortable about being in a surrounding that's, familiar, but at the same time, I think you miss something if what you're looking for is to try to replicate your home experience.
Absolutely. When I visit somewhere, I don't want to go to the touristy areas. I want to go to these more authentic places and I want to do what the people in that country do and I want to have a more authentic experience. But like you say, there are so many people who they want to go to a place and feel like it's home from home, which is not the best way to travel and I guess learn.
That's true. I mean, there are ways to get off the beaten path, as you know. I mean, in a city like Beijing, for example, there is the short list of things you have to see, right? I mean, and they definitely are worth seeing. But then once you get past that, there are all these like hidden gems, like parts of the city that are very old and very charming that you won't see a Western face in, for example. Those are the places where once you've been there, you really feel like you've accomplished something. You've discovered something. Obviously, it's not a discovery, but that's the way it feels like to me. If I go to Tiananmen or to the Forbidden City, yes, it's beautiful and it's a wonderful experience, but I'm there with lots of tourists. I go to some, back alley in Beijing where I find some great place to have lunch. That to me is feels like an accomplishment. I've found something that wasn't in a guidebook, for example.
What about being in Beijing and working in Beijing? How have you had to change apart from obviously adapting and being self aware and aware of other people, how have you had to change your mindset, if at all?
I think attorney-client relationships in the United States are very transactional. I mean, it's kind of like, what are you able to do for me in this particular circumstance? With Chinese companies and with Chinese clients, the relationship really has to have a personal nature to it. With a lot of companies, it takes a long time to develop that personal relationship before it transforms into a professional relationship. So you have to be willing to make the commitment to get to know people, to get to know the clients, to get to know the companies in a way that I don't think is necessary for US practitioners and US clients. So that's been something, just committing to really learning about my clients from more than just a what am I working on right now kind of a standpoint.
That's really, really interesting to hear, actually. I was speaking to a friend recently about she was doing business with someone in Japan, and she was saying it's really difficult. You can't just talk about business, you have to build a relationship first. And I was like, yeah, that's how it does work there. And the same in China, you have to build this trust and this reliability and this relationship before you even really often start talking about anything to do with business. I don't know what it's like in the legal setting, but I guess it's kind of similar. How does that work then? How do you actually build up a relationship when you're going from a client attorney relationship? dynamic?
In large part, when I'm spending the first little bit of time that I'm doing here, there are visits to facilities, just seeing what they do there, right? I mean, first of all, doing patent law, that has been one of my favorite things to do, going and looking at these, factories or research centers just to see what they're doing in practice, right? But doing that, it's it's of heightened importance here. You need to show an interest beyond just, what contract you're going to draft for them or what patent application you're going to file or what litigation you're going to handle. A real genuine interest in their business. They want to feel like you're part of the team and that there's a personal aspect to that, there's a professional aspect to that, there's a longevity aspect to that, that it isn't just a one and done kind of relationship. So I'm scheduling meetings with clients on site, which requires me, I guess, to my benefit, to travel around China and visit these places. Yeah, just demonstrating an interest in what they do that may or may not ever result in work. That's at least a good chunk of what I'm doing in the first instance.
That can be quite frustrating, I can imagine, because it's not very efficient, but it does build long lasting relationships.
The nature of business development here is such that your efficiency expectations have to be tempered somewhat. So unlike in the United States, where my evaluation metrics would be based primarily on billable hours, here I think it's going to be a longer term paradigm. How am I doing over, let's say, the first year or so, rather than any given week or month? I guess the good news is I still have enough residual work on my US cases. So, to the extent billable hours are still important, I have them. But I think the idea here was, the investment the firm made when they brought me here was to look at a longer term business development goal.
They couldn't have put anyone in that role because this US mindset that you were talking about, where you go to a court in one state and say, well, in New York, we do it like this. If you went with that mindset, then you would have probably failed within the first few days of trying to get clients, right?
I think that's right. If you come here with the mindset that there's only one way of doing things, apart from probably missing out on the sort of the cultural experience itself, you're not going to be very successful. And I would hope that anyone that would do something like this, and I think there are a lot of people out there that would, your listeners first and foremost. I mean, I think they wouldn't be like that. I would think they would be more like the attitude I'm trying to bring, which is I want to learn about these places.
Totally. What about negotiation? How is that different in China?
The first thing I'll mention is for a lot of Chinese clients, just getting used to the way US litigation operates is teaching them about it is very challenging. Litigation in the United States bears no semblance whatsoever to litigation in China. I mean, for example, just doing things like discovery, opening up your books and producing information to a potential competitor, for example, that is just a completely foreign concept, not just here, but other countries around the world. So when you're talking about getting clients to the table, for example, and negotiating settlements, I think for them, a lot of times the hardest part is explaining the risk of litigation and all the effort that's going to go into litigation and how settlement is always a better option than going to completion of any litigation to judgment. I think is a challenge for sure. But it's like anywhere. I mean, if you're able to explain in clear terms to them, understanding that what you're saying is going to be completely foreign, you can get them to, I think, appreciate the benefits of negotiation and meaningful settlement arrangements. But yeah, it's a challenge in a lot of instances.
I don't know what the percentages of Chinese people and international people in your firm, but how is it working in a firm of different cultures?
So I am the international person in our Beijing office. Everyone else is Chinese. We do have international people in our Hong Kong office, and everyone in our Shanghai office is Chinese. So I am really kind of like a unicorn among the two offices in the mainland. I will tell you, my office has been great. They have really helped the transition such that it's been a really, really soft landing. So I am very appreciative for that. I mean, you obviously have had the advantage of doing your work on the road. Before I came here, worked probably 90% of the time from home. I telecommuted even though my office was in downtown Chicago and only 12 miles away. Here, they're in the office every day. Everybody is. It's been part of it's been getting used to being in the office again every single day. And here, the workday is 9 to 6. That's been a transition. The work ethic here is incredible. I mean, everybody is, you know, really making sure they're contributing to the firm operation daily. The other thing too is this firm, and I'm not sure it's so much a Chinese uh, cultural thing as opposed to just this office. But the firm does things as a firm. There's no distinction between the partners, the associates, the support staff. Everybody does things like going out to lunch and going to social events as a group. And I really like that. I think that only helps to contribute to the team environment in a firm or an office.
That's interesting. So in the US, for example, is it more, I guess, normal from what you've seen in your experience for groups of like, let's say, groups of partners, groups of admin staff, whatever, to go and do things together?
No question. I mean, in our Chicago office, we would have office happy hours once a month, and it was just the attorneys. The first week I was here, and everybody went to the restaurant, every single employee of the office. In Chicago, if there were such things going on, it would be a group of partners. I mean, for example, when I came to the office in Chicago, the first day I was there, I was taken out by two partners in the IP practice group, and that was the lunch, which was great. I mean, don't get me wrong, that was fine. It was a nice welcome to the firm, but it was different. I mean, here, seeing everybody gathered around a round table at a restaurant here, and then we went around and introduced everybody in the office to me. It was nice. It was nice. It was a very team feeling.
You know what? If you think about the culture in China, and like you were saying, most restaurants you have this round table, and usually the table, well, the section within the table moves so you can access the food, and you share the food as well. You don't usually get just one plate, which you do in the US and the UK and most parts of Europe. But you've got this sharing culture, and I guess that also transfers into doing business, and the idea of building these relationships with people before you get to the business propositions or the business scenario. And it's the same in the office. Everyone's welcome, everyone's included. It's a team dynamic, it's sharing, it's collaboration, and I kind of like the sound of that.
Look, I've long been a believer in making everybody on the team feel like they are important and making a significant contribution. I think it's a mistake to even unconsciously make team members, no matter what their title, feel unimportant. You want them to feel vested. You want them to feel like they have actual skin in the game here. And the way to do that is by making them feel included, making them feel like they're important, even if it's something as I mean, trivial is the wrong word, but as mundane as going to a lunch. That I think helps. It really does. And you can actually see it when there are activities like events like that.
It just feeds into the culture, and this having this really positive environment, which can only lead to good things, really.
I agree. I think, they're tangible benefits. I think that the people I'm working with here, I've seen their level of commitment and just their desire not just to do whatever the particular task is in front of them right at the moment, but to actually learn why they're doing it and looking at the bigger picture. And again, if you've got a team of people, irrespective of their title, that have that mindset, it can only help.
Absolutely. I know a lot of firms, for example, in the UK, have really tried to create these types of cultures that you're talking about. But the thing is, I think in China, from what I've seen from my experience there, it goes back through generations, but it's not only in business or working, it's the culture of the country. And it's not as easy as a firm being like, okay, we're now going to start inviting everyone for a lunch or inviting everyone to events, because that's just like the surface level. It's like putting a band aid over a cut, you know?
Mhm.
It goes much deeper than that. You can't just fix a culture by trying to be inclusive, because it goes into mindset, mentality, how you feel working within a firm and in a team.
So China was tending towards an egalitarian society for the last many decades. And so, for better or worse, I think that that mindset has at least contributed to the ability to integrate uh, people within a workplace team, irrespective of their titles, irrespective of their seniority, in a way that maybe a place with a more traditional hierarchy, such as Britain and even the United States, may not be so readily able to do. So you've been traveling around now for quite for a while anyway, and seeing all these different parts of the world. What's your favorite place that you've been and why?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably have to say that my all-time favorite place is Hong Kong, just because it's an incredible place. You've got variety of like mountains, beach, city. It's got everything that I could possibly want in one place. And it's the food is amazing and it's just a very interesting place. But I would say coming to a close second, which is a place that I have always wanted to live and live now, is Spain. It's like just my all-time favorite apart from Hong Kong, but I couldn't live in Hong Kong forever, whereas I could live in Spain forever.
How many days a month are you on the road, just sort of touring around?
To be honest, it does vary. I can't just stay in one place for a few weeks. Although I do have a base and a home, I like to move around. So, I mean, last year I was moving around quite a bit. Like, I would say every few weeks I was moving to a different place, like traveling to a different place, whether it was within Spain or another country.
I will put in a pitch for anybody who is looking to come to China. Kind of the good news, bad news when you're first coming here is that you're on a business visa. Any one stint that you're here on that visa is only 90 days long. So you actually have to, get on a plane and head somewhere else for at least a few days and then turn around and come back for another 90 days. That's until your work visa comes through, which takes about a year. So the good news part of this is every 90 days, I get on a plane and go somewhere else. And because of where Beijing is located, I can get to pretty much any place in Asia in very short order. So the kinds of places you can get to: Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, even India, Japan, Korea. I mean, they're all within reach. So I highly recommend that anybody who is thinking about doing something like this think very hard about China as a good place to go. It has so much to offer. Asia has so much to offer, and I think it really does present an opportunity to enrich your career in ways that you may not even realize.
Definitely. I can confirm that one for sure. Where's the best place that you visited in Asia?
Siem Reap, Cambodia. This
Oh,
was a
yeah.
number of years ago, but we flew into Phnom Penh, and my wife found an orphanage in Phnom Penh. And actually, it was run by the taxi driver that drove us from the airport to the hotel. And so we volunteered to come and help there the next day. So we stopped by a pharmacy and basically bought the place out to bring it to the orphanage. And then I taught English for the day. And my wife entertained all the kids with arts and crafts. And then the next day we got up and took a boat up the Tonle Sap River through the Tonle Sap Lake to Siem Reap to get to Angkor Wat. So it wasn't even that Angkor Wat was as amazing as it is. It was kind of the journey to get there. So yeah, I think it was not even so much that it was one of the best places I've ever been, but just the whole experience of being there and getting around was amazing.
Yeah, I've also been there and it's such a great place. It's one of my favorite places as well, actually. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I took a nine, it was meant to be I think a 9 hour bus, but ended up being a longer because it stopped like multiple times for like long periods of time from Phnom Penh to Siem Reap. And it was the countryside. the nature is just amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's like otherworldly. When
Yeah.
we were in Vietnam, we took a trip up, over to Canto and the Mekong Delta, and took one of those stick boats through kind of the old operating bases of the Viet Cong. But it just the jungle is so dense. It just doesn't look like anything that you experience if you're from the West. So it's just the diversity on this planet is incredible.
Where's next on your list of places to visit?
I'm thinking Hanoi. We didn't get to the north when we were in Vietnam the first time, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. So I'd like to visit Hanoi and Da Nang, just to see that part of the country. I mean, I'm also fortunate enough that we have offices in different cities throughout Asia. So if I have to have one of these working breaks, as it were, I can go to Singapore, I can go to Seoul, and I've spent literally one night in Tokyo, so I would actually like to go spend a little more time there.
Japan's such a great place. It's so interesting, and the food is just brilliant as well. If you've ever wondered how to build a legal career that fits your lifestyle and values, I've created something for you. 25 Ways to Do Law Differently and Get Paid for It is a free guide filled with simple yet impactful ideas for lawyers who want more freedom, flexibility, and fulfillment in their work. Just go to the description where you'll find the link.